Hello, teacher. I am Hoàng Nguyễn. Today, Monday is the 7th of March, 2022. This is exercise WH question. Whose plus now you see to you? 1. Whose baby do you take care of? My baby. Whose baby do you take care of? His baby. Whose baby do you take care of? Hers baby. Whose baby do you take care of? Their baby. Whose baby do you take care of? My neighbor's baby. Whose baby do you take care of? His friend. His friend's baby. Whose baby do you take care of? Miss Kelly's baby. Whose baby do you take care of? My sister's baby. Whose baby do you take care of? The lawyer's baby. Whose baby do you take care of? The florist's baby. 2. Whose bed do you use? My sister's bed. Whose bed do you use? My nephew's bed. Whose bed do you use? My niece's bed. Whose bed do you use? My cousin's bed. Whose bed do you use? My aunt's bed. Whose bed do you use? My parents' bed. Whose bed do you use? My colleague's bed. Whose bed do you use? My brother's bed. Whose bed do you use? My boyfriend's bed. Whose bed do you use? My grandma's bed. 3. Whose call do you take? My mother's call. Whose call do you take? My boyfriend's call. Whose call do you take? My husband's call. Whose call do you take? My driver's call. Whose call do you take? The architect's call. Whose call do you take? My doctor's call. Whose call do you take? My secretary's call. Whose call do you take? The headhunter's call. Whose call do you take? My guardian's call. Whose call do you take? My daughter's call. 4. Whose car do you drive? Mary's car. Whose car do you drive? The chef's car. Whose car do you drive? The pilot's car. Whose car do you drive? The seamstress's car. Whose car do you drive? The pharmacist's car. Whose car do you drive? The journalist's car. The journalist's car. Whose car do you drive? The hairdresser's car. Whose car do you drive? The interpreter's car. Whose car do you drive? The lawyer's car. Whose car do you drive? Mr. David's car. 5. Whose car do you wash? Whose car do you wash? The president's car. Whose car do you wash? My kid's car. Whose car do you wash? Mr. Bean's car. Whose car do you wash? My dad's car. Whose car do you wash? The CEO's car. Whose car do you wash? My client's car. Whose car do you wash? The magician's car. Whose car do you wash? The chairman's car. Whose car do you wash? The alchemist's car. 6. Whose chocolate do you eat? Here's chocolate. Whose chocolate do you eat? Papa's chocolate. Whose chocolate do you eat? Paul's chocolate. Whose chocolate do you eat? Nanny's chocolate. Whose chocolate do you eat? My wife's chocolate. Whose chocolate do you eat? My granddaughter's chocolate. Whose chocolate do you eat? Simon's chocolate. Whose chocolate do you eat? Red's chocolate. Whose chocolate do you eat? The VIP chocolate. Whose chocolate do you eat? Someone's chocolate. Whose contract do you revise? Their contract. Whose contract do you revise? My company's contract. Whose contract do you revise? My husband's contract. Whose contract do you revise? The architect's contract. Whose contract do you revise? The building contractor's contract. Whose contract do you revise? The travel agency's contract. Whose contract do you revise? The health insurance company's contract. Whose contract do you revise? The singer's contract. Whose contract do you revise? My school's contract. Whose contract do you revise? My teacher's contract. 8. Whose email do you receive? My boss's email. Whose email do you receive? My team leader's email. Whose email do you receive? My best friend's email. Whose email do you receive? The principal's email. Whose email do you receive? My customer's email. Whose email do you receive? A soldier's email. Whose email do you receive? A sailor's email. Whose email do you receive? The primary's email. Whose email do you receive? Ministry of Education's email. Whose email do you receive? The partner's email. 9. Whose files do you access? Obama's files. Obama's files. Whose files do you access? The offender's files. Whose files do you access? My idol's files. Whose files do you access? The goalkeeper's files. whose fires do you accept? The dancer's fires, whose fires do you access? The billion, the billionaire's fires, whose fires do you access? The mayor's fires, whose fires do you access? The scientist's fires, whose fires do you access? The architect's fires, whose fires do you access? The candidate's fires. 10. Whose invitation do you accept? Science invitation. Whose invitation do you accept? The modern invitation. Whose invitation do you accept? The church's invitation. Whose invitation do you accept? The policeman's invitation. Whose invitation do you accept? My sister's in-law's invitation. Whose invitation do you accept? The cook's invitation. Whose invitation do you accept? The priest's invitation. Whose invitation do you accept? The usher's invitation. Whose invitation do you accept? The baker's invitation. Whose invitation do you accept? The bride's invitation.